coffee, get comfortable. We're about to get started. I'm excited to have this conversation with our guest today. You won't want to miss it. Unfortunately, we won't have time to catch every comment, so if there's something very important that you want seen, please consider using a super chat. As always, be respectful. We're glad you're here, and enjoy the show.
Can't hear you.
I boomered it again. All right. Happy Saturday, everybody. I did it again. I do it like almost all the time. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Happy Saturday, everybody. My name is Dustin. I have Coach Bronson here with us today. If you're not familiar with him, he is amazing, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself.
I am. Okay. So, I don't even know where to start sometimes whenever I have to do this. I've been doing let's just talk about carnivore first. So I've been doing following carnivore diet since 2018. I started in May of 2018, cold turkey, May 1st, and just kind of never turned back. I am 53. I got my background in this area, health, fitness, nutrition, and everything, really starting on the fitness side of things. Used to own a CrossFit gym. I've been coaching and working with people for going on 12 plus years now. And my focus over the years has really just been helping people understand what metabolism is, what health actually is, what the underlying foundations of improving your quality of life is all about. And because everybody gets into this talking about, right, most people start with trying to lose weight. So what I found in my clinical experience working with people one-on-one is that a majority of the people that I've ever worked with over the past 12 plus years whose focus was on weight loss never successfully kept the weight off. When they changed their focus and shifted to, I want to improve how my body works, they improved how their body works and they lost weight and didn't get it back. So there's a difference in how we approach the things that we're trying to change and improve based on what the initial goal is. So how we start out will determine how we finish. And many people get stuck thinking that weight loss is the problem when it's actually not. Weight loss is a symptom of the problem. And the problem is other things that we have to look at. And that really ties into what we're going to talk about today.
It is a fundamental flaw in diet culture. As I think that's built-in flaw, though. It's a built-in flaw because if you can't succeed at weight loss, then you always need weight loss culture. You always need diet foods. You need diet this, diet that. You need whatever the new thing is. You need Wegovy or whatever it's called, Mounjaro, all these things. You need these things to come around. So I think this is a subject that's long overdue. I don't see it talked about too much.
Mm-hmm.
I see most of the time with influencers, people, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, whatever, either it's team calories or team calories no, or however you want to put that.
Sure.
Where, calories are important or they're not important at all. And so I think this is extremely important to, dive in and talk about the function of calories, how they play a role with metabolism and what the skinny really is on them.
Yeah, nice pun. No pun intended, right?
Of course.
And even in the ketogenic and carnivore community, we see this focus on weight loss and fat loss that is misguided. Whenever we do things to focus on just losing weight, we oversimplify and we avoid dealing with the actual fundamental purpose of nutrition, right? So nutrition and weight loss have nothing to do with each other. And this is where we get people saying, focusing on things like fat doesn't make you fat, or if you eat too much fat, you're going to get fat. And why we even have this debate is kind of ridiculous, because fat isn't for weight loss. Fat is for the function of your body in specific things. Protein has a specific function. Carbs have a specific function. So when we start looking at things as functional, then it changes the entire conversation, because it changes everything that we do. And that's really the base of this. When we talk about calories, I'll just jump right in a little bit. I think you mentioned the role of calories in metabolism. Let's start with what even is metabolism. And this is the biggest thing that I realized years ago when I was running my gym, and we we invested in a commercial grade body composition scanner. And when I first realized, something clicked in my head as I'm starting to use this body composition scanner, I'm like, there's a lot more going on than just how much somebody weighs, right? There's body fat percentage, there's lean mass, there's skeletal muscle mass, there's hydration, there's visceral fat, there's all of these different aspects of what our body is made of and how they contribute to body composition. And then conversely, how that impacts overall health. So looking at, okay, if we are more than weight, if our body's made up of different things, we have to tie that to what does that mean for what we're eating? If what I'm eating isn't just about weight and it's about, I have to support muscle mass, I have to support body fat, percentage, I have to support hydration, I have to support all of these other functions, then there's something else going on. And maybe there's more going on than just energy in, energy out. And that's really understanding body composition is really what started this chain reaction in my brain of, hey, wait, there's more going on than just energy. So when we look at metabolism, 99% of people, if we say metabolism, I'm sure everybody watching and most people, when you talk to them, they think, oh, that's energy. How does your metabolism is fast or your metabolism is slow? I either burn a lot of energy or I don't burn energy at all, or I can speed up my metabolism by doing more exercise, or all of these different things about how energy is processed in the body. And unfortunately, that's one thing out of dozens of things that our metabolism is actually about. When we talk about metabolism, it literally means every process in the body that is running to keep you alive. So every chemical process, every biological process, everything that's happening physiologically and neurologically in your body, that is your metabolism. So you can't speed that up. It just functions, right? You can't uh, change something so that you burn more energy and then that equals health, if that makes sense. If you have poor digestion, or if you have an autoimmune issue, or if you have arthritis, or if you have uh, a hormone imbalance, right, hypothyroid, or any of these things, insulin resistance, those have nothing to do with calories. That has nothing to do with energy. That has to do with dysfunction. We talk about metabolic dysfunction all of the time, and yet nobody says, hey, wait a second, what do calories have anything to do with this? Because we're all focused on trying to lose weight, right? So that's kind of where one part of where my passion is now. Right now, I'm doing a lot more on the sports nutrition side of things, but I still am very much in the general health and quality of life community, and trying to help people understand that how much you eat and how much you weigh is less important than how well your body works. And that's the focus. That's what I hope everybody gets out of this conversation today.
Because one of the major misconceptions is just because you're overweight means you have a slow metabolism, or if you're skinny, you have a fast metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, though, when I was over 400 pounds, I was hot all the time.
Sure.
I was steaming hot, sweaty all the time. And then as I started to lose weight, when I, going to ketogenic diet and started losing, lost 150 some pounds, I was freezing cold all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has to be something metabolically driving that factor or that kind of behavior, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about this. And this is an example I see all the time that drives me crazy. Um, Asian people don't have nearly as much cardiovascular disease, or what is it? They have a lower mortality of cardiovascular disease than anyone else in the world. I hear statements like this all the time. They have a lower BMI than most places, even though they eat all these carbs, they eat all this rice, they do all that, everything. They eat more rice per capita than I think, most other places in the world. But then we think about, well, wait a second. Okay, so they have a lower BMI, they're less obese, but they also have lower lean mass percentages compared to other countries in the world. They have higher body fat percentage compared to other countries in the world. And they're in the top 5, I believe, of insulin resistance and diabetes. So when we talk about this idea that size has anything to do with health, we are completely missing the point. Right? Asians in general are the smallest, not the smallest, but a smaller size body wise than most other ethnicities in the world. Yet they have the higher percentage of body fat. They are actually more metabolically dysfunctional than even some people that we have in America that are over fat, right? That are overweight, over BMI, because BMI doesn't tell us anything. So it's not about the weight. It's about how well is their body functioning. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you would have to imagine they're not eating a lot of meat. They're eating a lot of,
They do actually eat a lot of meat too.
okay. So,
Yeah, they
so
do.
that's another major misconception then if they're eating primarily rice and they're not eating a lot of meat, but then,
They do
because I
both.
was thinking
Yeah.
if they have a lower lean body mass and a higher fat mass per capita, then it would just seem like they don't have as much, like they're not getting as much protein, or they're not, maybe they don't work out. I'm not quite
There's
sure.
some cultural things there too, right? So that the culture is very much focused on being tiny and diminutive, especially for women. So it's a culture of smaller is better, thinner is better. Um, it's not a highly physically active going to the gym isn't a huge thing. Walking mostly is where most people there get their exercise. So it's definitely, they're not doing things specifically focused, especially compared to America, to build muscle, build lean mass, get big, get strong. It's all about getting skinny. And we see that here. I have tons of clients who are skinny fat because they just want to get small and they think that small equals healthy. And it really doesn't. They have all the same problems. Tiny, small, skinny people, low BMIs, who still have insulin resistance, who still have, cardiovascular issues, who still have autoimmune things going on, who still have hormone dysfunction, thyroid dysfunction, and all these other types of things. So that's what we're talking about. When we talk about metabolism, we're talking about all of the things. If we look at your car, you can have the best gas mileage, but if you haven't changed your oil, if you haven't changed your tires, if you haven't washed your windshield or cleaned your headlights, you're not going to be able to drive safely or get where you need to go without getting into an accident. And that's what everyone's focused on, gas mileage, and forgetting everything else.
It is hard to break that stigma, the paradigm of skinny equals healthy.
Yeah.
Because
Sure.
I mean that's what we're sold day in and day out. Well, you have to get skinny, you have to get skinny, and then it's compounded by going the other way, where you have the healthy at any size.
Yeah.
So we're kind of bombarded on both sides with you have to be skinny to be healthy, or you can be 400 pounds and still be healthy.
Yeah, which is not really the case. I mean, being 400 pounds is not. Let's put it this way. Even if we don't put any limiters on size, Okay. If we just look at the average metabolically functional person, okay, regardless of how much they weigh, the average metabolically healthy person, no insulin resistance, no metabolic syndrome, no hypertension, no cardiovascular disease, no autoimmune or hormone issues, no gut digestive issues, a good amount of lean mass, right? Physically active, good cardiovascular strength or endurance and performance. Just someone who's basically what we would consider healthy. All the blood markers are good. They're physically fit. There's a range where that average person in those conditions is going to be when it comes to body weight and body fat percentage. And then we use that as the standard. If you're outside of this on either end, this is where people miss. It's on either end. That something probably isn't right. And usually it's lifestyle. Usually there's something in our environment that we're doing to create an imbalance in where our body wants to be optimal. And that's really all we're talking about. Everything's a spectrum. If we look at health as a spectrum, on one side you have not fit and sick, and on the other side you have healthy and fit. And everyone's in some in between. The interesting thing is that the weight piece of that is different for everybody. How much I'm going to weigh when I'm healthy is going to be different than how much you weigh when you're healthy. And the weight isn't the goal. This is where I tell people all the time, I understand the desire to set a weight goal. And it's not a bad thing. And I'm not telling anybody that weight doesn't matter and don't try to lose weight. And, if you're 400 pounds, don't set a weight goal. Go for it. Have a blast. That's a way to measure progress. It goes along with 18, 20, 30 other things you can track. Don't just focus on that one thing. But when we focus just on the weight, we miss the fact that there's a functional piece to it. And if you're improving your health, there is no weight goal that actually determines your health. It's the health that determines whatever your body's weight becomes. Does that make sense? It's like I can say that I want to weigh 185 pounds. If I get to 185 pounds, that doesn't mean I'm healthy. I have clients all of the time who hit their weight goal, who are still on medication, who still have issues, who still have movement, right? We talk about fitness. Fitness includes the ability to move. I hit my weight goal, but I still can't get out of my chair without help. Well, then you're not fully healthy. You're healthier, but health includes biological, physiological, and neurological factors. So it's how does your body function? How does your body move? And then how does your body process everything in your life? And that's what
I
we're talking
just
about when we talk about
I
health.
I think a lot of times the weight is what really causes us to spiral.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a you've never heard of somebody go, well, I can't get off of this medication, so I'm going to give up. It's always I can't get from 200 to 185, or I can't get below 250, so I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
So, and I just don't know how we get past that because it's so set in pop culture. It's so set in day to day life, and not just in the United States, but around the world.
Around the world, absolutely. And I don't think we can get past it worldwide. I think we get past it one person at a time. That's why what you're doing is so important,
Yeah.
right? Because we can't change the world. We can only change a person, right? We can only provide information. We can only give people insight into things that can help them improve and move forward and break this mindset that everything has been pushing for the past 50, 60 years, right? That how much you weigh determines your worth. And that's the most ridiculous thing ever, right? The way I look at it is how much can you contribute to the world? And you can't do that if your body is limiting your freedom. And that's how I look at it. I don't want anybody to lose weight because I think they're less valuable if they're overweight. Everybody's got value. Everybody's important. Everybody can make an impact. But if you trying to make that impact are limited because your physical ability has a box around it. Let's help you remove that box so you can actually be who you're meant to be. That's kind of how I look at it.
It gives a new definition to body positivity, because body positivity should not just be the physical, what we see, the visual, physical attributes that you have. It should also be how you feel inside, how you can move around, like you said. Are
Yep.
you on medications? Are you, can you get out of the chair without help? Do you lay in bed all day because you just can't physically get out of bed because life isn't worth living? Or, all these factors that so many people struggle with day to day. And it's such a crazy thing. And I struggle with this. I struggle with the idea that loved ones have issues and you want to reach
Oh,
out to them and you want to say, if you just eat better, a lot of this will go away. But they're so unresponsive that you still say things sometimes, even though you shouldn't, I guess.
yeah.
But it's like that awkwardness that always happens. But it's like you can't always sit by and go, but I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I don't know. Leading by example only goes so far if they're not paying attention. But
They're paying attention and
yeah,
they know. It's something you really just have to trust because I'm the same way. I've got family members who, and not even that it's a weight issue. There's a lot of health issues, and I've been in numerous arguments with people in my family who blame me for trying to oversimplify things, and it's just because they're doing things wrong in their life, and it's their fault that they're having these problems. And honestly, in some cases, it is, but you can't say that, right? It's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. You are having this problem because you keep doing these things. And if you stop doing those things, it's very likely that problem will go away. But people, especially when they've had issues for years, it becomes who they are. And they don't know what life would be like if they didn't have that issue. And the challenge and the hurdle that a lot of people have is they just can't even grasp what it would be like if they didn't have to do this, or if they didn't have this problem anymore, or if they weren't always complaining about this because it was gone. Like, what does your life look like? And if you don't have a vision for what's beyond that, then you have no need, no desire to move. So that's kind of where a lot of people are at, is right. This is the box they live in. That's all they can see. And there's no reason to go outside that, because what's out there, they've never looked at what's out there. So it's our job to show them what's outside of the box, and it's up to them if they want to come out and step out and try to do that or
what use case, if any, do calories actually have? Because we know that
not.
there are, I guess the better question is, so do calories matter at all?
No.
No.
Let's talk about that. So before we get into that, let's talk about what calories are. Okay, so we talked about metabolism, and we want to set the base with metabolism. Metabolism is not just how our body burns energy or creates and burns fuel, creates energy by burning fuel. Metabolism is all of the functional pieces, processes, and systems in our body, right? So just so, cardiovascular, immune, hormones, building muscle, digestion, lymphatic system, all of these different functions of our body, or how our brain functions, etc. So all of those things, only a small percentage of those are energy related, right? When we talk about calories, we have to understand, first of all, that calories are a concept that came out in the 1800s, right? We're talking a long time ago, 200 years ago now, almost. And it started in mechanical engineering. It started as a way to measure the heat that engines produced, right? So we took this idea of heat from engines, mechanical function, to, well, if I burn this type of food, and how much heat does it take for this food to change 1 gram? I think it's 1 gram of water, 1 degree. It's this many calories. So we equated calories is a measurement of heat energy to increase water temperature 1 degree. Okay, so that's literally what it is. Now, how does that apply to the human body? It actually doesn't. But here's the thing: what tooling, what technology did we have in the 1800s to have any concept of how we measure how much actual energy is produced from the food that we eat?
Zero.
Zero, right? We had no idea. So now we think, and honestly, here's the catch, and this is the struggle. We still don't really. We know what things are, and we know that there is a number value to ATP production. And this is where we want to talk about the difference, why calories don't really matter. Calories measure how much heat heats up water when you burn something. When we actually use energy in the body, what we're doing, everybody understands ATP is the currency of energy. We've all heard that, right? ATP is a molecule that is used by the body to make everything go. It's the powerhouse. It's where all of the energy comes from. There's no heat energy in that equation. It is ATP, right? It is literally, here's the dollar bill, take that dollar bill, make change, and go do what you need to do. That is how energy in the body works. So proteins, amino acids, make a certain amount of ATP if you utilize them for energy, which we don't do that much. Fat and carbs, glucose, I should say, not carbs, because carbs actually don't produce energy. We'll talk about that. Fat and glucose, when you break those down, fat makes depending on the size of the fat molecule, will make anywhere from 125, 126 to 300 ATP per molecule. And glucose can make 32, 34, depending on what calculation you use, molecules of ATP. So there's a difference in the actual amount of energy currency that the food that we eat can make. Nothing to do with calories. Calories and ATP do not have a correlation at all. So when we talk about heat energy, back in the 1800s, that's all we had. So we started saying, okay, well, if protein heats up water at 9K or at 4 kcals, and fat heats up water and it gets a little hotter, it gets 9 kcals, and carbs, oh, that's about the same as protein, there's 4K, right? We start looking at these things and we start saying, okay, this is how hot a food substance has to be in order to heat up water. We're going to equate that to the human body and start tracking and figuring out all of these things. So that becomes the basis of the time for all theoretical conversations about bioenergetics. All theoretical conversations about how the body works becomes a calories in, calories out discussion, because that's all we had. It wasn't until the early 1900s, mid 1900s, that we really started understanding protein, amino acids, fat, carbs, and ATP production. When we start getting into, hey, wait a second, there's an actual amount of ATP that's produced when our body processes fatty acids or glucose. And then we start getting into the macro discussion. What are the macros that we're eating? Then we start getting into, oh, I can actually, technology evolves. Now I can look at, wait a second, what do we have on our phones now? I can put a 16-ounce ribeye in my carb manager or my MyFitnessPal or my chronometer, and it will tell me how much protein, how much fat, how much carbs is in that actual food. So now I'm able to say, okay, this is what I'm actually taking in, the physical substance that I'm putting in my body that I know my body's going to respond to in a specific way with its metabolism, because it's not just going to burn it, it's going to use it. There's a difference between burning and using. And one of the things before we go further I want to highlight is the biggest challenge, I'm going to say one of the biggest challenges that we have in science and in just the health and fitness community, social media, publications, books, whatever, is not being intentionally specific with the words that we use. When we say use something, that does not mean burn something. There is a ginormous difference between the two. When we say carbs are required or carbs are important for exercise, That is not the same as saying glucose is required for exercise. Carbs are not, glucose is. There is a difference. We don't burn carbs. I hate to break it to anybody. You're not a carb burner. You are a glucose utilizer. You utilize fat, you utilize protein. We don't burn carbs. Carbs are the external substance that we bring into our body that gets broken down into glucose. That's what your body actually uses, right? So we have this problem in the space where we try to simplify things to help people understand overall concepts, but then we don't ever take the time to, once they understand the concepts, really explain it. And so now we've got a munge of wording and ideas that don't actually fit into what's really going on. So it's a hard balance, and I totally understand where it comes from. But that's where I try very hard to say, look, I understand calories, and his calories is a great example of this, because 90% of the time when people say calories are important, what they're saying is intake matters. How much you eat makes a difference. And that is absolutely 100% true. How much you eat matters. But it's how much of what you eat that matters, not everything. And when we talk about function, that's where we get into, okay, calories themselves don't have a place in the human body. There's not a single process in the body. If we talk about how does the body utilize energy, a little sciencey right now, we talk about glycolysis, we talk about ATP phosphogene system, we talk about fatty acid oxidation, we even talk about ketolysis, how the body utilizes ketones. None of those processes, the Cori cycle, the Krebs cycle, gluconeogenesis, all of these processes in the body that have to do with energy management, none of them include calories. Not a single one. They don't use it, they don't process it, they don't make it. Everything is about taking a physical substance, breaking it down into ATP, converting it into something that can be broken into energy, and then ATP is where that energy comes from. There's no calories in any of that. So when I say calories don't matter, I'm saying the theoretical energy equivalent of heating up water does not have a biological place in the human body. What does matter is understanding that the macronutrients we eat impact how our body functions. That's the separation. Now, from a function perspective, if I'm eating protein, then we know that protein primarily is a building macronutrient. It's used for building muscle. It's used for thyroid hormones. It's used for tissue regrowth and immune system and hormone management and all of these things to help keep our body working properly. It's only used for energy if there's nothing else, right? And that's a generalization. That's basically, our body's always breaking everything down. But when it comes to the prioritization of macronutrients and substances in the body, protein is not something that your body is programmed to prioritize for energy. Our body is programmed. Here's another, as I'm saying this, here's another set of words that we often use improperly. Preference versus prioritization. Our body doesn't prefer anything. And I want that to sink in for everybody listening. There's no preference. Preference assumes choice. I'm doing this because I'd rather do this than this. Our body does not have that option. Our body is programmed by our DNA to respond to environments and situations in a specific way. That is all it can do. It is programmed to prioritize based on a pre-programmed list of evaluations of what's going on in your body to manage your system and your metabolism appropriately. That is it. It can't prefer anything. So when we talk about carbs are preferred or fat is preferred, there's no such thing. Okay, we have a list of prioritizations. It's pre-programmed in our body. And if I'm in an environment where I have excess carbs, where I'm eating a bunch of carbs, my body's going to prioritize processing and managing that carb intake to keep me healthy. And it's the same with fat. And it's the same with alcohol. It's the same with anything that we put into our body. If I drank a half a gallon of Drano, my body is going to respond in a specific way to keep me as safe as possible. That's just what we're programmed to do. So understanding that there's a prioritization based on programming, it's not the same as preference. We don't change the preference of what our body wants. We don't prefer anything. So when we talk about the use of things, protein is a building macronutrient. Fat and carbs, fat can be a building macronutrient, right? We know that cells use cholesterol to build the cell structure. We know that our brain is mostly made up of fat. We know that fat is very important to a lot of hormonal functions. There's a lot of functional things that fat is used for, but it's mainly used as an energy substrate. It's mainly used for energy. That's why we have a literal unlimited amount of fat that we can store in our body. Our bodies are designed to store and utilize fat. Okay, because that is the most appropriate. That is what the programming says is optimal. Okay, and then carbs, there is a small amount of cellular structure, biochemical reactions, and things that are supported by carbs. There are carb-based substances in the body that are required for our body to function. I should say not carb-based, glucose-based, right? Saccharide-based substances. Eating carbs is not a requirement for those things to exist or function. We have all of the systems in our body to produce carbs. So that's why we say carbs are not essential. Carbs are not essential is not the same thing as your body doesn't need glucose. Your body absolutely needs glucose and glycogen. That's why these things exist. You just don't need to eat carbs in order to get them. So when we look at protein, fat, and carbs, they all have very specific functions. None of that has anything to do with calories. And here's a challenge for anybody who's struggling with trying to understand, how do calories not matter in the human body? Ask yourself this. Here's two questions. I love this. This is thought exercises. Name one thing that you're trying to do in your life right now that you can fix or improve by adjusting your calories, but don't use the words protein, fat, carbs, or electrolytes. One thing that just by changing your calories you can fix in your health, your fitness, your quality of life, anything like that. It's not possible. Everything that you do to improve your health and quality of life has to do something with a macro or micronutrient when we talk about nutrition.
Because one of my questions is if calories truly mattered, then 0-calorie products like Diet Coke and things like that wouldn't have an impact on the body.
Correct.
We wouldn't struggle with weight loss with introducing diet beverages, sugar-free beverages, whether it's sucralose or aspartame or whatever.
Yeah.
If the 0-calorie or ultra low calorie things wouldn't impact us, then or if calories matter, then those items wouldn't impact people's bodily functions, whether it's weight loss or whatever, causing water retention, that type of thing.
Yeah. If it was all about calories, then there would be no impact from no calorie food. Right. Here's another side of that. I like you brought that up because this ties into the second thought exercise. If nutrition was about calories in, calories out, then we would never poop.
That's one of those things. I've never seen anybody ever talk about the idea of like, well, we measure calories going in, but we never go and burn what comes out to see what's left over.
Yeah. If it's real, if I need to be in a 500 calorie deficit to lose a pound of weight a week, then technically, if we're talking about calories in, calories out, I would never have extra calories. I would never have anything left to get rid of in my body. So if I'm on a deficit, if I'm in a cut, I should never poop while I'm on my cut, if it's calories in, calories out. But we know that's ridiculous. We know that's not how it works. So the whole calorie conversation, just from that point of view, Doesn't how does that even track?
Because I mean, I've done 21-day water fasts and still poop, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. There's still things going on in your body, right? And I love this statement that Darth Conover said: 0 calories doesn't mean consequence free. And this is one of the challenges that I give clients all the time when it comes to those 0 calorie foods, especially 0 calorie Cokes, diet drinks, and things like that. Is until you understand that everything you put in your mouth, your body has to respond to, then you'll not ever grasp metabolism. Because if you put something in your mouth, like I used the Drano incident, example earlier. If I put Drano if I drink a cup of Drano, my body responds to that. It isn't about calories. It's a toxic. It's saying, hey, this doesn't belong here. We need to get rid of this. We need to do something with this. And you're going to throw up, or it's going to do whatever it can. And it's the same thing with all the other things that we eat, regardless of calories. So you're absolutely right. If it was about calories, then 0 calorie foods wouldn't have any response in the body. But how many 0 calorie foods have you eaten that mess up your gut, give you constipation, or give you the runs, or whatever else it may be, right? Because it all affects how our body works. Absolutely. Um, Continuing on about calories, and I know, feel free to just interrupt me. I tend to get on a roll and just
Sure.
start going. There's a handful of things additionally that I want to bring up about why calorie counting doesn't make sense. Doing things based on calories. And what I want to end this with, by the way, is we'll talk about this, but then I want to go, okay, so here's why we shouldn't be using calories. So then the question is, well, what do we do? If we're not going to use calories, what's the other option? How do we figure out how much we should be eating? Because again, quantity does matter, but we'll talk about that. So two things to talk about. So the first thing, I had a small list here. We talked about calories being defined in the 1800s. Did you know that not all calories by macro is the same by source? So just
Explain.
because we say 9 calories for fat, there's a dozen different types of fat, right? In the sources of food that we eat, and all of them have different actual calorie numbers. The average is 9. So depending on what fat you're getting in, it could be 6, it could be 10, it could be 7. We don't know what the actual calorie intake of any of the food we're eating is. Okay, that's number one. So when we talk about calories, and this is one of the reasons why it boggles my mind how all these scientists, you mentioned Lane Norton earlier, how all these PhDs and scientists are so fixated on making calories be the thing. And anyone that says calories don't matter is an idiot, and all these different things, right? Scientists are fighting their hardest to prop up the least scientific data that we have, because calories are not exact. There's a handful of variables, and we're going to go over some of the variables. And you have to question, like, if we know there's this many, any scientist will tell you, the more variables you remove, the more accurate your equations and your results are going to be. But when it comes to calories, the variables are huge, and there's a lot of them. But for some reason, this is the golden rule of all nutrition. Never makes sense to me. So we know there's an error already. There's a variable in the calories assigned to macronutrients, because the source of that macronutrient is going to change that number. So that's one. Food labels, we know there's a 20% error rate, or error range, that's allowed in food labels. So if a food label says this has X number of calories, it could be 20% higher or 20% lower. You never know what you're actually getting based on the food label. That's another variable that we can't account for. Using wearable devices, the inaccuracy rate of wearable devices is astronomical. They're great if you're looking at trends. Like I say all the time, when it comes to how am I progressing, wearables can be fantastic, because whether the number is accurate or not, you can see what the change is. As long as it's consistent in how it's reading you and it's getting good data, over time it can help. but it's going to be highly inaccurate in the specific number that it's giving you at any one moment. So that's a third one. Most people don't include the thermic effect of food. Most people don't equate in their calorie calculations for what they need in a day. They don't equate for the energy cost of actually digesting and processing that macronutrient, right? So we know that 35% of the energy processed to process amino acids is lost in the processing, right? So from a calories perspective, if I eat 100 calories of protein, what's actually being applied to my body is only about 65, because the cost of breaking that down is high. So that's the fourth thing that we don't really account for. The complication and the inaccuracies of the calculations for calories. I'm sure you've done calorie. You go online, you do a calorie calculator, right? And it's like, what's your daily activity? What's your resting BMR? What's your activity modifier? 1.2, 1 if you're sedentary, 1.2 if you're somewhat active, and you put all these calculations number. Every single one of those is an estimation and generalized number. It's not accurate to you. It's just a general equation, but you're adding more variability every time you add a number. So now we're looking at 6 or 7 different variables that aren't specific to you or your biological function. And we're trying to make all of this be how we decide what we eat. And then here's another thing that doesn't get included in calorie counting, calorie calculating. You may metabolize protein better than I do. You may get more out of your 16-ounce ribeye than I get out of my 16-ounce ribeye. Maybe I have gut dysbiosis, or I have some kind of digestive issue, SIBO or something, where I'm not processing, digesting as well as I could. So for me to look at calories is going to have a completely different impact on my body than you, because you're getting more nutrition, you're getting more energy substrate, you're getting more fat, you're getting more things than I'm getting. I may need to eat 50% more of the same food to get the benefit from it. But if I'm counting calories, I am by default undernourishing myself because I have an access to the nutrition problem that I don't know about. Because I'm not looking at the impact of the actual food that I'm eating. I'm just looking at an imaginary number. Right. So
And
that's
if we're looking at just math in of itself, Gary Taubes said something one day that I was really enthralled with. He said, basically, if you have an extra, I think it was 30 calories a day above what your body's supposed to have, if you're 30 calories above calorie deficit a day over 20 years or whatever, it's like 20 pounds of weight gain.
Which is honestly, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, that's like
it makes no sense.
3 almonds,
Right. Well, but
day.
not even that, but there's no way to say that. That is not a scientific statement. And I hate, I love Gary and a lot of the stuff that he's
Well, I
done.
mean, he was saying that because he's talking about, like, if calories are the end all be all,
Oh,
just
right.
having the extra 30 calories a day means you're going to still, like, how small margin of error there really is. Because I can't remember who he was debating. He was debating someone on Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And it's been years and years ago, but he's he's good calories, bad calories
Right.
author.
That's what I was going to say. It surprises me. So he was saying that in the argument against calories. That makes
Yeah.
much more sense. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just how ludicrous and how small of a error is that humans would have to go, if you have just 30 calories extra a day, then over the course of this amount of time, you're going to gain this amount of weight. And
Sure.
that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. That absolutely doesn't. It doesn't. And because I'm assuming most people that are watching this get a lot of this because it's stuff that we talk about all the time. Intake matters, calories don't. But yeah, I mean, I've had people, and we see this all the time. People are like, I'm eating less, but I'm still gaining weight. Okay, what are you eating? Are you changing your body's ability to metabolize or remove the substances that you're eating? Are you eating things that are causing it to hold on to stuff more? Because it's not about energy, it's about response. You can eat less and gain weight. Guys, depending on what you're eating, you can eat less and gain weight. If the hormone response to what you're eating is telling your body is putting your body in a situation where it is programmed to respond a certain way through hormone response or inflammation or whatever else. A lot of times it's an inflammatory response, right? It's a stress on your body, and your body's like, okay, let's hold on, let's figure out what we're doing, and that's why it's called dysfunction. And this is something I hadn't intended on talking about, but I really want to talk about that. The idea that if we eat less, we'll lose weight doesn't hold up if we're also having a conversation about metabolic dysfunction, right? And I'll use an example. I have a client right now that I'm working with who's dealing with overtraining syndrome. He's an endurance athlete. For years, he has overtrained himself, not taken enough rest, not eaten enough, not done any other types of exercise to improve his overall fitness. He's run and run and run, and his body is now broken.
You're working with Goggins?
Yeah, right. I wish. Um, but he's broken. His metabolism is screwed up. He's got gut issues. He's got fatigue issues. He's got all of these things that are literally symptoms of his body is dysfunctional because he's never given it enough time to recover and rest. It's the exact same thing. This is a physical response to overtraining. Metabolic dysfunction is overtraining syndrome for your biological function. You've been stressing it out. You've been doing things, causing an inflammatory response, causing a stress response, constantly you're burning the city down, and your firefighters are overworked in your body. That's what dysfunction is. So anything that we do, we cannot expect it to result like we think it should, as if it was healthy, right? If I eat less fat in general, then I will lose body fat. But if what I'm eating, even though it's less fat, is fake food, processed food, seed oils, alcohol, diet drinks, and a bunch of other things, I'm sending a bunch of really mixed signals to my body. It doesn't know how to respond to that. It's not programmed to handle reduction in fat intake, but then also introduction of 18, 20, 30 different chemicals it doesn't know how to do. It's got to respond to. So losing weight while eating less is just a symptom of dysfunction, right? So thinking about it that way kind of changes, hey, wait a second. This is where we get into what is metabolism? How does what I eat and how much of what I eat matter? So we talk about calories, I just listed a bunch of reasons why calories aren't the way to go. What is the way to go? When we do a calorie calculator, you've done those calculators. And this is where another mind exercise, I guess. This is where I kind of get befuddled when we talk about the scientists and everybody pushing calories and coaches and nutritionists and everything else. Every single calculator that you go to calculate your calories, what does it give you at the end? You do a calorie calculation, you put all this information in, and at the end, what are we getting? We're getting macros. Every bodybuilder, every bodybuilding coach I've ever worked with, every fitness person, everybody I ever talked to, can you give me my macros? And then they pull out this giant sheet of 18 different calculations using calories to then come up with macros. Why don't we just start with the macros? Right? If that's where we're going to end up, we're going to do all this energy calculation to come up with, well, that means you should have this much protein, this much fat, this much carbs. Why don't we just start there and make it super easy? We can screw all the other stuff, which is what I've done. Many years ago, I just basically said, I'm never doing a calorie calculation again. I haven't used calories in my clinical practice in over 5 years. It just doesn't make sense to me. What I do, and I call it the 1-to-1-to-1 method, is I say, what is your lean mass or goal weight? And then just match it. Protein 1 gram to that number, and fat and carbs 1 gram to that number. Trying not to stay under 70 grams of fat. That's it. That's your starting point. Everybody can start there. You don't have to calculate anything. You only need one number. How much do I want to weigh, or what is my lean mass? So so I'm 195 is my current weight, right? My lean mass right now is about 165, 170 if we take my body fat stuff off. So my target, super easy, 165 grams of protein, 165 grams of fat if I want to maintain where I'm at. That's my starting point. Since I'm carnivore, I don't worry about the carbs. Right now I get around 15 to 20 carbs a day or less. But in general, and then I use that fuel piece, right? The carbs and the fat, I combine that. So if 165 is my number for energy macros, I call it fuel macros and functional macros. I split them up. If 165 is my lean mass, then I need 165 grams of fuel macros. So I'm getting 15 to 20 grams of carbs. That means the rest is fat for me. That's how I break up my energy, my fuel, my nutrition intake. That's it. It's super simple. And then I can say, hey, I'm still gaining weight. I'm still gaining body fat at this number. I'll go from 165 to 155. Try that for a couple of weeks. I'm still gaining. I'll go to 145. Try that for a couple of weeks. Oh, 145, I'm not gaining, but I'm not losing. This is my maintenance. So now I know 165, 145, I can maintain here indefinitely. If I want to lose more, then I just cut my fat back more. Protein never has to change. And this is another problem with calories. How many people, raise your hands, were taught when they went keto or carnivore that you had a ratio you had to meet in order to be carnivore or be keto? It's got to be 30-70. It's got to be 60-40. It's got whatever the optimal ratio is. That's bull honking,
Yeah.
right? Because if you are basing, number one, if you are basing your nutrient intake on ratios, then by default, you're getting too much of something and not enough of something else. That is not a balanced, adequate way to get the nutrition that you need. And then number two, ratios are based on calories. So not only are you not getting something that you need, or you're getting too much of something that you don't need as much of, but now you're basing your intake on calories, which we've just spent an hour talking about don't matter anyways. So what are we doing? Right? So if we just cut all the other stuff out, just start with what are your macros? Here's a way to figure it out. How much do you want to weigh? And if you want to use your goal weight, okay, I want to weigh 200 pounds or less. Okay, let's say 200 pounds is your goal. Shoot for 200 grams of protein. Shoot for 200 grams of fuel macros, fat and carbs combined. Never go under 70 grams of fat. For most people, I usually say never go under 100 because you need that fat intake, right? And we can talk about that. But that's your starting point. And then the second piece of that is I'm saying that's your starting point because nothing will work for you out the gate and nothing will work for you forever. So whatever you're doing, if you're looking for macros, if you're looking for how much should I take to be optimal or to get to my goal, you got to understand that that number is going to change over time. It could change in 3 months. It could change in a year. It all depends on a lot of different factors. But if you don't understand the starting point and how to adjust, then you're going to be stuck. This is the number I got. And I've had clients come to me with, here's my macros that a coach gave me 2 years ago. I've been following these macros for 2 years and nothing's happening. And it's like, well, man, we've got to change the macros. Like, did you adjust? Did you try this? Did you try that? Did you try? Well, no, these are the numbers they gave me. It's always a starting point. You have to be the N equals 1 for yourself.
And how does satiety play into those? If for somebody like for someone when I started, I was, as somebody who was a very, very like food addicted person, a lot
Yeah,
of food addiction issues, binging type of things.
sure.
When I started, I looked at it and kind of luckily came at it from the binge eating. Like I have to make sure I'm getting enough food.
Right.
Because if I don't eat enough, I'm not gonna succeed. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that in the back of my head. I didn't quite know how the mechanism was going to play out, but I knew that if I didn't prepare and I didn't bring enough food and I wasn't eating enough to where I was full, I was going to be more likely to fall into temptation, working in an office, all the
Sure.
things that come with that, whether it's cake, brownies, bagels, whatever. And so especially the first few months, I didn't even really look at how much protein I was eating. I didn't look at how much fat I was eating. I really focused on limiting carbohydrates
Yep.
to the best of my ability. I know there's because I was eating string cheese and pepperoni and lunch meat and trying and boiled eggs and
All day long,
trying
man.
to
Yep.
trying to get things for myself that I could bring to work because I'm at work 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
And there's all these distractions. There's candy at everybody's desks, and there's a lot of things that I had to navigate. How does that play in if somebody were to come to you? How would you like? Would you even bother with like, or would you give them like the base minimum? Like you need at least 100 grams of protein, at least 100 grams of fat.
Yeah.
Keep your carbohydrates under 20 total. Is that how you would do it? But then go kind of go ham to keep another but to keep satiety signaling because I
Yeah.
mean that's obviously broken.
Yeah.
So you
Everybody.
have to
Yeah.
relearn that. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's different, and it's part of that evaluation as a coach, working with an individual, asking a lot of questions, trying to figure out where they're at, where they're trying to go, what they've been through, what they're even able to deal with, the capacity they have for different levels and types of change. Um, some people I've worked with can come in and will say, "Here's what your macros are," and they go do it, and they just deal with it and they figure it out. Other people come in and it's like, "Hey, BBBE, that's you all day. I don't care. All I want you to do is cut out your alcohol and just try to eat as much meat as possible." Right? Everyone's going to be different. Some people, we're not even going to look at that. We're just going to say, hey, you know what? You need to stop going to McDonald's for lunch every day and bring your lunch. That's where we're starting you. So it's gonna be completely different for everybody. The goal is to figure out how you can improve over time, because it's not going to happen overnight. Three things. There's three keys to good nutrition that everybody needs to understand. And I'm glad you brought up the satiety piece. Nutrient density, bioavailability, and satiety. If you can work on those three things, and when it comes to satiety, there's two pieces. There's the physical, biological response, the hormonal response to what you eat, right? Which, if you're removing a lot of those hyperpalatable foods, if you're removing a lot of those seed oils and processed ingredients, you're going to be more satiated when you eat by default. It's just how our body functions when we clean up what we're eating. Secondly, on the satiety piece, there is the mindset work that has to get done. There is the awareness of identifying what are your triggers, what are your habits, why are you doing what you're doing, and all of these other aspects of things that go into coaching and doing some of that individual inner work, right? So the satiety piece isn't a simple answer. Yes, changing your food habits can help with satiety, but based on what your food habits, the challenges you're having in your food habits, some of the satiety questions aren't actually satiety, they're mindset. But we think of it as satiety. So it's really, there's some mindset stuff that often has to happen as well. That's why in both of my last books, I talk about fitness, nutrition, and mindset as being the three pillars of a successful journey. You got to have all three. You can do all the things for fitness, you can do all the things for nutrition, but you won't sustain them until you get your mind right.
And I think and there's because there's that component with getting, the mindset and having that linked with satiety and things because there was a time where I was eating myself to where I was in physical pain, right?
Yeah.
I was eating so much that I was in physical, like if I moved wrong, I could rupture. And that was
Woo.
one of the things that I dealt with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after you lay there for a little while, then you're like, well, I think I've got some room for ice cream now. Like
Been there. I've been there.
like how messed up that is to think about it in hindsight,
Sure.
because how bad it is. Like, when you get to be 400 plus pounds, you're big, you have problems, there's a lot of things, there's a laundry list of things going on there that aren't right, but you're in it
Yeah.
and you're just struggling to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that's, because I am, because I know you're, I'm going into that Dr. Barry, I'm in the inaugural class of the Dr. Barry health coach
Okay. Cool.
certification.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to learn. I don't know what I don't know yet about coaching and all that stuff. So they're going to teach me all of that. I have a good foundation, I would think of what on the, what to eat, what not to eat type of thing. But I'll
Right,
learn
right.
more on that side of things as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what they have as far as on the coaching side of things. So there's a lot of coaching specific stuff that makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into this because and like that's one of my focuses is that I would like to like obviously not knowing what I don't know, but one of my focuses I want to with finding people that are like myself that aren't in the community, because I think, preaching to the choir is one thing, but trying to find the people out there that were like me, that, doing the, with the overeating, the binging, the satiety issues, trying to kind of give them some hope, a line or whatever, um, to help bring them home kind of thing. Um,
I love it.
that's what I hope to learn. But, that's one thing, like, once that satiety thing, like, like as being someone like me, like when you get down and you're like, when that first time when you have it and you're just done, you have food on your plate, but you're just done. And it's not like, oh, I'm so full I couldn't eat another bite. It's just, okay, let's do something else
Yeah.
now.
It's
It's
it's like a kind of freedom, right? It's like, wait a
yeah.
second, I'm not held captive by this anymore.
And I still have triggers. I still have issues. I still have things that because things will come up you don't even realize. And they're always come from the weirdest places. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
a work in progress,
Yeah,
but
and it's for everybody. Everybody
Mhm.
deals with this, and everybody has a version of this kind of thing, right? So, just a little bit about me. During right before COVID, um, I sold my gym, which I had invested 5 years of my life into, which was my gym was in many parts my identity. So, selling for anybody who's owned a business that they put years of their self into, having to get rid of that or getting rid of that is it's a identity crossroads that many people aren't prepared for, and I was not prepared for it. It destroyed me. At the same time, I got a divorce, and then in both of those things going on, COVID happened. And then after COVID, right as COVID was happening, going through these things, I was in the process of moving my business online, virtual. COVID happened, and then 85% of my business disappeared. So I was dealing with all of that, and through all of that, through COVID, I that was probably the most depressed and just down in the dumps I've ever been in my life. If I told you that it would not have been uncommon during this period for me to spend 3 or 4 days a week in a row eating 3 to 5 pints of Ben and Jerry's a day, sitting in front of the TV playing Call of Duty, because I had no desire to do anything else. That was my life. In probably 6 months, 8 months time, where I was in the deepest part of this, I probably put on 20 pounds, 25 pounds. Just that's all I did. I didn't go to the gym. I just sat there. I worked out at home because you couldn't go to the gym actually at the time. So I did things, and I was trying to be that guy on the internet of, oh yeah, I'm still doing all this stuff. And I was miserable. So one of the things that I experienced after coming out of that, there's a grocery store down the street where I would go, a Giant in the parking lot, where I would go to get my ice cream. And I love Five Guys. I'm a Five Guys guy all day. I'll go get some patties and eat them to death. They opened up a Five Guys in that same little shopping plaza, right? I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's right down the street. I don't have to go across town to Five Guys anymore. This is cool. The first time, the second time, the third time, the fifth time, the 20th time I went there, every single time I had to beat the temptation to go to Giant and get ice cream. A year later, a year and a half later, it got to a point where maybe I don't want to get Five Guys, because if I go into that parking lot, I'm going to want to go get ice cream. So it gets you and it holds on to you, and you really got to work through, okay, what is going on here, right? I'm not even in that same level of depression or dealing with the things I'm dealing with. I'm in a much better place, much different place, but that habit that draw is still there. And that's something that I think everyone kind of has to work through.
Yeah, we just had like back of our neighborhood, they just started putting up a bunch of warehouses. And to support those warehouses, literally at the back of our neighborhood, now we have a Starbucks and a McDonald's. Like I mean, just snaking through the neighborhood is about a mile.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's like literally right there. It's like we come home, we go right by the McDonald's to come home. We leave, we go. I'm like, come on. And I don't. And it's not the food. Thankfully for me, I don't really like McDonald's food. I've never really have.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the cheeseburgers are okay, whatever. But like for me now, the idea that I can just get a Coke Zero.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
You know, I mean, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how do I beat that? Like,
Right.
you know, and I mean, and you know, and then at the same time, you're like, is Coke Zero the worst thing that I can do? Probably not.
Yeah.
But is it helping me? No.
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the two questions. Is this helping me? And why does it matter? Why am I attracted to a Coke Zero? Why am I attracted to ice cream? Because here's the thing, you know for a fact, because this is what happened to me, is what happens to a lot of people. The minute you finish whatever it is you went out and got that you know you didn't need to get and it wasn't helping you, but you thought it was going to make you feel better, did it really make you feel better? Right? You enjoyed it for
Coke Zero is one of those ones where like it doesn't like it's almost like got that high level of innocuous. What is it? What's the word I'm looking for? It's innocuous to a level that it's like so much almost not of a big deal, but it's just enough. Like, because I don't feel bad after I have a Coke Zero. I don't feel like, you know what I mean? It's not like I had a pint of ice cream. So I mean, there's like, I mean, it is almost like a win because I didn't get a chocolate shake or whatever. You know what I mean? But like. Yeah. I don't know. So it's like the weird games your mind plays with itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then the question is that when we talk about awareness, then is what is the draw and where is the justification coming from? Because if you know in your head, it doesn't matter if it's Coke Zero, whatever it is, if you know in the head that this thing, even if it's not that bad, it's still not helping.
Right.
Why do I still want it? And why am I justifying whether I can have it or not, or should have it or not? If you can start asking those questions every single time you have the thought, it will develop an ability to kind of respond and figure out where that's coming from. Once you figure out where that's coming from, then you can make a decision. Is this something I want to worry about or not? And go from there. But until we know where the desire is coming from, we're doing ourselves a disservice to fulfill that desire.
And it's akin to like almost like how I've never had an issue with alcohol, but I've heard people who have mention, there's just something they're like, I want to drink so bad. I just want to drink so bad that I don't want anything worse than having a drink, whether it was beer, whiskey, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of like, I've thought about that with, the original formula of sugar-free rock stars, the energy drink.
Okay. Yeah.
I've thought about like, I'd see one and I would be like, it would just get that taste in your mouth.
Yep.
And and it's almost like, I mean, there's obviously no alcohol in there or anything like that, but there's like, there's a dopamine thing in there. You're just like, I want it so bad. And then they discontinued, or Pepsi bought them and changed the formula. So then I couldn't get them out. And then I was like, okay, so that helped me a lot.
Sure.
But then Amazon now sells them. I'm like, but I've made a deal with myself as far as with that. I have one 12-pack comes every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I can have 2 a month.
Okay.
So I mean, and there's little things like that, but I mean, that's like the problem with like having the Coke Zero. It wasn't a big deal for me until it was basically next door to my house. And
that's the thing. It's not a big deal until it is.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand why it is and where it's coming from, then it's going to be harder to deal with that. For me, what you're talking about, ice cream and French fries. Anything fried potato, don't put it in front of me because you're not getting any.
Oh, that's the messed up thing is like McDonald's is always trying to offer me free French fries with the app. You know what I mean?
right? So I am a sucker for hand cut French fries. So if you're familiar with boardwalk fries back in the day, before they changed their thing to these crappy fries they got now, it used to be fresh hand cut fries.
I don't think we have those.
Those Five Guys French
Yeah,
fries,
yeah.
Mission Barbecue French fries, those types of, I absolutely love them. Home fries, hash browns, tater tots. Don't get me in around any tater tots. But that's that for me. Now, I again, the equation of is this helping me or not? When you get to a certain point, the question is, can I do this? Because here's a part of the conversation that is really hard to have. We just spent 15 minutes talking about being aware of things that we know aren't helping us. That equation changes, and this can be a dangerous conversation because I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. When you're on your journey and you're trying to get to a point of health and improved quality of life, the way you approach this conversation can be different than once you're there. Okay. And I've talked about this before. I am at a point now, I'm no longer overweight. I'm no longer dealing with IBS and urgent bowels. I'm no longer dealing with depression. I'm no longer dealing with all the aches and pains and injuries and musculoskeletal glycation issues that I was having, right? Because my insulin resistance, my issues with nutrition didn't show up in an A1C. They showed up in continually getting hurt, in muscle breakdown, tendon breakdown, torn labrums, torn meniscus, herniated disc. That's how it showed up for me. So all of these things are gone. I'm not dealing with any of that anymore. I'm at a point now, and I've been here a couple years ago. I was sitting in my living room looking out the window going, I don't have anywhere else to go. Like I've spent 8, 9 years trying to get healthy and improve my life and improve, like it just hit me like I'm there. Why am I still so hyper focused on everything that I put in my mouth, everything that I do for fitness, everything that I like? I'm trying to do all these things as if I just got started. So, in a way, I want to just kind of let everybody know there is light at the end of the tunnel. Right now, you got your nose to the grindstone. You're in the red in your health, as if it's finances, right? Your financial health is in the red. When you get to the black, that's where things really get good. Because then you can say, where can I invest? Where can I splurge? Can I go on vacation? Can I do this? Can I do that? And if you're prepared for it, and this is the trap, we're getting a little woo woo right now, but this is the trap of looking for shortcuts and trying to get there before you're ready. I talk about this in my last book, Body Confident. If the journey was a straight line, you wouldn't be ready when you got there. So the challenges of everything that you're dealing with to get to the place of I've reached my goal, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I don't have medical problems, my quality of life is amazing. I can do whatever I want to do with my life at this point. I have no limitations. If you got there overnight, you would blow it all away and you'd waste it. And then you'd be right back where you started. The challenges you go through, the things you learn along the way is what enables you to stay there when you get there. It's what enables you to say, you know what? Like Coach Bronson, I can have hash browns at a Saturday brunch a couple times a month, and it's not going to throw me off track. Right? Because I've learned what I can handle. I've learned what I can tolerate. I've gotten to a point where I understand where that desire comes from, and I can manage it and I can deal with it. And it's not going to just throw me for a loop every time I do something. And I can say, here's an example. About 2 months ago, I decided I want to start cutting again. Coach Nat has a show she's doing towards the end of the year. We're trying to cut. I want to be, she's going to be on stage looking all ripped and strong and everything. I don't want to be there and be like, hey, I'm in maintenance mode, right? No, I'm not. I want to be cut. I want to represent and look good. Well, it's a thing when you talk about bodybuilding. There's an aesthetic thing. If couples have to look good at bodybuilding shows, not just the competitor. Don't explain it to me. I don't understand it. It's how it works. But I decided, hey, I want to go support her. She's cutting, then I'll cut too. Also because lifestyle wise, it's hard to cut if your partner's not cutting. So from that perspective, hey, I'll cut back on some things. That way, certain things aren't in the house. She's trying to cut back on things. I don't want to tempt her with stuff while she's trying to do this thing. But I was able to just switch. No more ice cream, no more fries, no more this, no more that, right? That's just what we're doing. This is how we're doing it now because I've been through the ups and the downs and the challenges and understanding what my triggers are and changing my habits and doing this and doing that. So it's possible. That is food freedom. Okay. Coach Nat talks about it all the time. If you're living in a straitjacket in a padded room around food, you do not have food freedom. Food freedom is being able to make your choices based on your goals and be comfortable with it without feeling stress, guilt, or some kind of way because you made that choice. That's food freedom. You don't have to. I'm like that with alcohol. I was an alcoholic years ago. I had a couple of years where it was bad. All right. I worked a regular job, but then I also started bouncing at clubs and doing a bunch of stuff. And there was a very couple of years that were, I got to write a book about that time at some time. But I realized how much it was messing up my life and I had to stop. So I stopped. And one of the ways that I stopped was by not going to bars anymore, not even going to restaurants that had a bar. If it had a bar, I wasn't going. That means there were a lot of friends that I had that I didn't hang out with anymore. There are a lot of places that I used to go that I didn't go anymore. I did that until not having that exposure in my life got me used to not having that exposure in my life. And then I said, okay, I'm not craving this anymore. I've gotten through the cravings. If someone invites me to a restaurant, I'm going to go have dinner. That's awesome. That's cool. They have a bar, no big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. And then I slowly was able to get back to where you could throw a bottle in front of me right now and I'd look at it and go, no, I don't know. I don't want what that does to my body. Not even interested. Right? Because it's a process. So yeah, all the things you're saying, yes, to just give you some examples from my experience.
I have a couple of questions.
Shoot.
All right, so this is a two-part question. So the first part here, this is from Risa, and she says, question, Bronson, I'm trying to gain weight. I eat low carb. I lost too much and need to gain 10 pounds. What do you think my fat protein should be? Weighed myself and I've gained 4 pounds so far.
Okay.
And then let's take a look, and there's a little more detail here. She says, part of my question, my macros are set at 100 grams of fat, 100 grams of protein, 60 grams carbs. At the moment, I want to be 110 to 115 pounds, and I have 18 pounds to go at the moment. Should I be gaining slowly?
Should be more gaining slowly.
Yeah.
So this is a great example of what we talked about earlier is where does that number for your weight come from? What does that mean? How do you know that 110 or 115 is healthy? That's the first question I would ask does that number mean anything to your health and quality of life? What are you trying to do? So if we can change the conversation from how much do I want to weigh to what do I want to do, then we completely change the conversation. And how we do that. What is the physical requirements of your daily life? Can you meet it? What are the physical requirements of the things that you want to do for fun, enjoyment, for fitness, whatever it may be? Can you do those things? Do you have good sleep? Do you, what is your health? Are you on any medication? I don't know anything about Risa, so I don't know any of the information about her as well. So there's a handful of questions about what is your quality of life and what is your actual goal? Do you have physical freedom? Do you have health freedom? Can you do whatever you want to do, or do you have limitations? If we focus on removing the limitations of our life, then the weight doesn't mean anything. Are you eating enough protein to build muscle? Are you doing exercise to optimize the protein that you're eating to build muscle? Right? So My question would be, why does the weight matter? And if it doesn't ultimately matter, what are the things you're trying to improve, and how are you improving those things regardless of your weight?
Yeah, because I don't know much about Reese. I don't know. She could be 6 foot tall. She could be 4'9". We don't know.
Yeah. You can't, it's hard to answer specific macros and other types of questions like that without knowing anything. But ultimately, I don't know where the number for the weight comes from. And what does that do for you? If we're going to do any number, and here's another tip. If you're going to set a goal and it's got to do with your biometrics, your physical composition, then I would set a goal for body fat percentage and lean mass percentage, right? So I would say it doesn't matter how much I weigh, I want to have less than X body fat and at least X lean mass percentage of my total weight, right? So most people should be around 60% lean mass and 20 to 25% body fat percentage. If you're in those numbers, then you're fairly healthy. If
All right.
your body fat is, if your lean mass is under 60%, it's time to go build some muscle. If your body fat is over 25%, it's time to start losing some body fat.
All right. So here's a little bit more context. She says, I've heard that I should be eating about 100 grams of fat and protein to start, or it should be the same amount as what my weight needs to be. So 115 grams. I'm
Okay.
5'1" and 64 years old.
Okay.
And she says she does functional fitness at work. I lift heavy boxes and push heavy things. I am lean, but I have a lot of muscle from the job.
Okay. So if you're lean and you already have a lot of muscle, I will say there's a common misconception. Most people, even if you have a physical job, that is not the same as training. A physical job is not functional fitness. And here's two main reasons why. Number one, you're focused on the work you're doing. You're not focused on how you're moving. You're not doing it with an intention of improving your fitness. You're doing it because you have a job to do. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is it's not comprehensive of everything that you need to be doing as a human being. Right? We have 7 essential movements. We have a bunch of different ways that our body metabolizes things for energy. We have a bunch of different characteristics: balance, coordination, agility, speed, power, endurance, stamina. All of these things that define fitness. You're not getting all of that just because you have an active job. So yes, it's not bad. It's a level of activity that is above normal, and it's going to help with some of your cardiovascular fitness, some strength, and things like that. But you still need to do specific, focused, intentful fitness training, particularly resistance training. That's the first thing. Secondly, when you do that training, it should be focused on building muscle. If you're lean, here's a challenge I get with a lot of women. I don't know how many women over 40 I've dealt with who are very lean, who do everything they can to exercise to lose fat, and they can't figure out why they can't gain weight. And I have to tell you, and nobody likes hearing this, it's very likely that you are under fat and that the weight you need to gain is in body fat, not muscle. And I want to say that again. There are a lot of women, a subset of women in the demographic who need more fat on their body. That's hard to hear. It means you're going to gain weight. But here's the deal: it's going to make you feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have better hormonal function. You're not going to be as physically stressed. And it will help fill you out and make you look better. So there's a good portion of women that need to do that. So if that's you, Risa, eat more. Just eat more. Eat more fat. Maybe 100 isn't enough. 100 grams of fat isn't enough. Maybe you need 115, 120. Again, not knowing what your body composition is, I can't say that for sure, but it sounds to me like you might be under fat. If you've ever heard anybody say that before, man, I'll be your first coach to say it's possible to be under fat.
Yeah, I think with like that heroin chic look,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
That is perfect. Yes, yes.
Like the whole Kate Moss trend from
Yeah.
the 90s.
Yep.
You know, Apple and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was
It's very possible.
a super chat from Andy Carnivore. He says, "Thank you for the show, Dustin. $10. Thank you so much for the support. I truly appreciate that." Let's see. I don't know if there were any more questions, but I want to say thank you to a lot of people who were here. Evelyn and Lynn and Rick just showed up, and Thomas from Target Prime Rib. Because typically my shows are we just do a lot of talking to the chats. So
Oh
when I have
yeah.
a guest on, you know how we do.
Yeah.
Brian was in the house, Mary T. Everybody seems to like you,
Well,
Bronson.
good.
Yeah, two of my favorite people. More than one people. Evelyn said this. Mary T said this. I think even Amy said this. Yeah,
Awesome.
I love it.
I love talking to you guys. I love what you're doing, Dustin. We met was it Keto Palooza?
Yes, briefly. Yeah,
If you get a chance to do anything else, let me know.
yeah. Anytime you want to do this, we can get together. We can talk about whatever you want.
Fantastic, man. I do want to plug something real quick,
Sure.
if I may. I'm starting a science club. I don't know if you saw it on my Facebook or not, but I have a Discord channel that everybody's welcome to join. It's free. Just come join and chat. But in the club, I am starting a subscription. It's $10 a month. And basically what we'll do is every 2 weeks, we pick a study and then we get on a group call and we analyze the study. So if anybody's interested, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm officially a doctoral student now. I've been working on papers. I've got 3 papers that I'm drafting for publication right now. I'm really getting into the scientific side of things a lot more than I have been. And I was looking for an outlet to kind of geek out with people. So if anybody's interested in geeking out, learning more about the science, or even just being exposed to how do you analyze these things, when this study comes out and they say, hey, this study does this, change everything about how you live your life, right? Does that really matter? That's what we're going to do. So a couple times a month, we'll get together, pick a study and say, hey, this is what we're looking at, go through it for an hour, hour and a half as a group, answer questions, educate people on how to analyze information and help them learn how to critically think about what's actually out there in science.
I like that because I think so often we see the study, we see the headline, we may look at the abstract, but we don't dig deeper than that. And
Yep.
most of us don't know how to dig deeper than that.
And that's what we want to try to help people figure that out. Yeah.
So I appreciate that very much because I think a lot of times there's a lot of the influencers who do throw around studies, or they will go too sciencey and they don't break it down for the people who need a little bit more help.
Yep.
Because most people just, whether it's, like people who talk in legalese, people who, however they want to do, like whether they get too sciencey, like that's like I try to listen to Nick Norwitz, and I think he tries.
He actually does a pretty good job, but yeah, it still can be challenging at times. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've listened to like 5 hours of him one day on my way to Nashville, and
that's a lot.
Yeah, it was like one long podcast about like lean mass hyper responders, and he's like there's a level of linguistic like ninja skills to try to where people can't pin him down for saying something at a school that he does. That does make it a little difficult to listen to him for long stretches because it just makes you tired.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I think the best person that I know that does the sciencey stuff and explains it well is probably Ben Bickman. He's probably one of the better out there of taking the scientific language and just saying, hey, look, this is what it means. This is what we found out. Here's how this works. But yeah, it's challenging. It's very challenging.
Well, I'm glad that you came on here. I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about this because I think this is, as far as calories versus metabolism and nutrition, there is a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of divisive I mean, I should say it is divisive
It is.
because
Yeah.
most people just don't, because either you're camp calories or you're camp calorie, you're not camp calories. There's not a whole lot in between. And I've always, because I mean, just one last thought of it is I've always utilized, okay, like I need to get this much protein, this much fat, and I should probably hover around this many calories. Can I make that
Sure.
work?
Sure.
I mean, because it is so difficult to just walk away from the calories in of itself, because that's what's plastered everywhere. You can't look at anything, like any menu board anywhere you go of any food, whether it's popcorn at the movie theaters or the soda pop at
Yeah.
Costco, it's all there labeled out with what calories are where, and you've got to have 2,500 calories, or the argument where keto only works because you're de facto in a calorie deficit, and all the things that we've heard over the years. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thank you for coming here and explaining that to us.
Absolutely. And if there's any other questions anyone has, if there's something we didn't hit, just let me know. We can always do this. I'm up for doing this kind of stuff anytime. So just let me know.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And I think with that, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you for listening if you're catching the replay. And with that, we're going to go ahead and hit the credits. And thanks so much, everybody.